Making a good bar chart inside of Power BI is not that hard, but there are a couple of techniques that you can use in multiple different ways to get exactly the look that you want. Here are 18 different ways to make bar charts, and we're going to go through how to do all of these today. This is originally made by Rosa Mariana de Leon Escribano, and this is actually something that was made originally inside of Tableau. Andy Kriebel made this, it's like his own version inside of Tableau as well, which has been made inside of Power BI by both Kurt Bueller a couple of years ago and more recently by Nicholas Leah Trengraus. And I think this is a really good, opportunity to show you just how easy these are to actually make. You can actually see this is kind of what it looks like, really nice and intuitive, and it shows a lot of different things. You might want to use these bar charts for different specific reasons, but I just want to show you how to do all of this today. Inside of my own GitHub, if you go into my Power BI tutorials, I will have a starter file in there, which is basically going to be the file with the data set and all of the measures created so that you can follow along and just make the actual charts with me. And here you can see basically the finished product. What we're going to do is we're going to build all of these, it's like one by one. We'll go through the data set, the different measures, and we'll just start building. The measures will probably go into when we start using them, but as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different charts that we're going to look at. A bar chart, an outline bar chart, rounded bar chart, and a whole bunch of different things. So stay tuned. Okay, the first thing that we should actually do is to look at the table. Now, there's one additional column here that I do not need, so I'm just going to remove that. But there are 4 different columns that we're going to be using: the region, year, category, and value. The region is going to be something that has, it's like 4 different regions: Central, East, South, and West. The year is from 2021 to 2026. There are 4 categories from A, B, C, and D, and a specific value that could represent anything. And now that we actually have that, we're going to actually just jump right in, and the starter file is basically going to look like this, and you'll have these different measures and this disconnected table. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with the absolute first one. So let's just zoom in a little bit and we'll take a look at this. What we want to be using is region as the y-axis most of the time, and we're going to be using the current year, which is simply the sum of the dataset value, and we're going to put this as the x-axis. This works really great, and this is more or less what we'd like to show for the most basic bar chart. One of the things that you actually need to know is that for a lot of cases, you can absolutely have the x-axis and the values, but since we're going to do something special here and show the actual values using data labels, we don't need to have the x-axis. So we're going to turn these off by opening the x-axis in the format pane, click on the values and the tile, it's like toggles, and we'll just turn them off. Then what we're going to do is we're going to, turn on the data labels, and you can see that this is basically almost exactly what we'd like to show. Because the regions are also labeled, we don't necessarily need to have the region here, and we can just go to the y-axis, turn off the title. And then for the actual chart title itself, we'll click on the title here. We'll make it centered, and we can change this to be called something like bar chart. That's totally fine. Now, first thing that I'd like to, talk about here is the padding. So you can see that the bar chart and the text is basically just right at the edge of the image. If you want to change that, you go into size and style, and you can change the padding to be something like 10, and then you can see that it moves a little bit of distance down. I think this is pretty good, and I think the maximum padding is 20 pixels. Like if I click 30 pixels here, you can see that there's an error. Value must be less than or equal to 20, so let's just put it at 10, and I think that's fine. Now, the other thing that we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that you see that this value is inside of the bar, and this value is outside of the bar. What we can do is we can go to the data labels and make sure that the position is outside end. Outside end means that it'll be, just outside of the bar. Inside end means that it'll be inside of the bar, and this looks perfectly fine, and I have nothing against this. If you click inside base, it'll be just at the base of the bar chart, and you can also have it in the center. Now, these are all fine options, but what we're going to do is we're going to put it outside end because we're going to try to resolve this issue. The issue is that the value is, it's like a little bit too big and you can't fit it inside, it's like the chart. So what do we do? Normally you'd think that maybe just increasing the padding might fix it, but the padding actually doesn't fix it at all. And you can see that the chart kind of moves along with, it's like the padding. And what you want to do is you actually want to go to the x-axis, and we're going to set a maximum value. Now we can see the maximum value is like 1.1 million. So you could technically put like, say 1.5 million, and that would do the, but the problem is that, you go to a different value and it's going to stay 1.5 the whole time. And, it might not look so good. Maybe you wanted to actually take up the full amount of space. And if that's the case, what you can do is you can create a measure like this. This measure looks like maximum y, where the max of the values of the region for, it's like the current year multiplied by 1.2. That basically means that since we're looking at the region in the y-axis and the current year as the values, we want to see out of all of these, which is the highest one, and multiply that by 1.2. So increase it by 20%. If we create this measure max y, it's actually really useful because we can click on maximum and click on this conditional formatting. Make sure that the format style is field value, and then look for this measure max y. We click OK, and now we have a dynamically set. Okay, let's try to make this a little bit bigger. And then we have it dynamically set so that even if we select a different value, it's always going to, it's like show basically the same amount of space that we need. This is really nice, and it's like I appreciate that we can, it's like set the, it's like x-axis maximum value. It's like using a measure, and like whenever you run into this problem, this is my go-to. And you can kind of see that, it's like this bar chart still looks a little bit different from what we intended. If you take a look at this bar chart and the bar chart here, the only difference is that we're using a slightly different color, but also the units are different and the size is different. So if you want to change the units, what you want to do is you want to select this. So right now you see that it's in millions, but it's like maybe it should be by the thousands. So you can go to your data labels, select, let me see, the value, and then you can set the display units to be thousands, for example. Now this is fine in a lot of cases, but you can kind of see right now this is definitely a million. So, it's like maybe this is not exactly what you'd like to see. But if you want to, it's like be more dynamic with this, you can actually just set a specific value here, which will change what you see here. So let's say, for example, I want to put in region here, then it'll show the actual region value. Otherwise, we can put it as CY and just set it as automatic. And I think that's totally. If you want to change the size, the width of these bars, what you can do is you can go into bars and you can go into your layout, and the space between categories, if we increase that, you can see that it makes the bars thinner. The space between categories is essentially what this white space represents, and you can just make it small or big depending on what you'd like to see. So that's the first one. Pretty simple, very easy to do. Now we're going to basically just take this bar chart, copy and paste it, because we are going to make an outline chart. An outline chart is just going to be the bar chart, but instead of having it filled like this, we're going to set the outline like this. And what you need to do in this circumstance is actually quite simple. Let's just zoom back in. The bar chart, first we'll rename it the outline bar chart. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into bars. We're going to set the color of the bar to be white. And then we're going to turn on the border, and we're going to, it's like set the border to be whatever color you want. You can be, it's like green, it can be dark green, it can be black, as you like. A couple of things you might want to change here. The x-axis, you might want to change the, it's like x-axis so that it just takes up the whole amount of space. And the data labels, you might want to put it inside center. Once you put it inside center, you might find that it disappears. This does seem to be just a bug. And if you set the color, it'll just show right up. And you can kind of see this has this nice effect of showing what value you're looking at and what, it's like the bars are. Very nice, very easy to do. What's the next one? The next one is the rounded bar chart. The rounded bar chart here is kind of, it's like interesting because we're going to start using error bars. And by error bars, we can take this bar chart. Let's just put it right here. And what is this? The rounded bar chart. And this rounded bar chart is interesting because this is the first time we're going to start using error bars. Now, error bars are interesting, and we're going to start by using this. I've created a measure which I've called _0, and this represents just 0. We're going to put this inside of the lower bound. We're going to enable the, it's like error bars, and then we're going to put CY, current year, as the upper bound. Now this creates a nice little error bar that you can see right here. And that's pretty cool. So we're going to go to the bars, and what we're going to do is actually make it fully transparent. So we are left only with the error bar. With the error bar now, we can just basically, so you can click match series color and it'll just automatically set it to what color you want it to be. We're going to set the width to be 10 for now. And then the marker, we're going to set to be a circle. And you can see that if we set the border to be 0, this is basically going to be, it's like a rounded bar. You kind of have to, it's like play with it to get the perfect size. So the maximum size of the marker shape is 10. So if I go, it's like higher, you can see that it's capped to 10. And if we make it 10, then we can make sure that the width of the bar is something like, I think this is also capped to be 10, but we can cheat a little bit and make the border size 2 as well. Now you can actually see that the, it's like end markers are a little bit too big. So we'll just make that a tiny bit smaller to a 7, and it makes almost perfectly rounded bars. You have to remember here that right now the x-axis still has that, maximum y placed in, but the minimum value is actually something we have to change as well. So if we put in like something like minus 50,000 here, then you can see that you can see these actual bottom values. But if you didn't have this, it's like minimum value, you wouldn't see the rounded edge of the, it's like back part, simply because it wouldn't be, it's like as visible. You can actually kind of see that this does change a little bit, the position, but it's, it's like very, very minuscule. And you probably do want to set this to be like a specific number. That's something that's also, maybe just taking the max value of this and multiplying it by 0.1 or something like that in order to get, it's like this, it's like back part. But for now, we're just going to put it as minus 50,000. I think it's fine. The next one that we're going to make is the stacked bar chart. Now the stacked bar chart is, it's like conceptually slightly different, but what we're going to do is we're going to just take this bar chart, copy and paste it, and we're going to change the style from the, it's like stacked bar chart. Actually, I think we keep it as the stacked bar chart, and all we do is we have this category field and we'll put it inside of legend. And now you can see this is basically very much the same as what you want to show here, but with the addendum that we do want to remove the maximum, it's x-axis. I know I put this maximum y, but this should be called maximum x. So let me just make sure I don't forget to do that. Okay, maximum x, we'll turn the legend off and we'll turn the data labels off. And, it's like, this is pretty good. And it shows, it's like how much of different, it's like values go in here. But the important thing to do is that, it's like this is just a showcase, but you probably should have the legend to let people know what the category actually is. It's like otherwise it doesn't really make sense. Another way you can also do it is if you put in data labels and put inside of the field the category, then you can show, it's like this is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D. And, it's like that's not really my favorite way of doing things, but it is a way you can go about doing things. Moving onwards, we're going to be making the stacked bar chart too. And okay, let's just make sure to remind myself to rename these. So we're just going to take the stacked bar chart, copy and paste it. And all you need to do is change it into the 100% stacked bar chart. We're changing the visual type. And by doing this, essentially what you're doing is you're saying that I am taking this visual and making it into a different type of visual. It's basically everything that you need, and you just need to, it's like turn off the data labels. And the main difference between these two is that the stacked bar chart is looking at actual flat values, whereas the stacked bar chart 2, the 100% stacked bar chart, oh, that's very wordy, is looking at percentages. So instead of having the data labels, if you turn the data labels on, it naturally shows the percentages, and that's what it should be, because it's like we're not looking at flat values anymore, we're looking at percents, which I think is very important. You can also kind of see now here it's it's like very, very close to the edge, and you can go into size and style, into padding again, in order to it's like correct that a little bit. So make that 20, and that looks a little bit easier to look at. Of course, you can use the max X trick here, but I think this is perfectly. Next one is going to be the divergent bar chart. So this chart right here, we're just going to, I think we'll start with the, it's like bar chart, but I don't think we'll use the bar chart. So let's remove this CY, and what we're going to do is we're going to take delta. Delta is current year minus past year. Past year is because we have a data model where we only have the year, and we're not using a date table because I didn't want to have daily it's like data. If you look at past year, it basically what it's doing is it's taking the selected value of the data set year, and it's just finding what is the current year, but removing the filters for the it's like removing the context for it's like what the current year is, what was it's like the data for current year for the last year, so current year minus 1. It's a really simple it's like measure, and all that it does is it gives me the past year. So if I just put those it's like right next to each other, you can kind of see current year versus past year. That's totally fine. But if I want to show a divergent bar chart, I'm taking the delta, which is going to be the CY minus PY, and here it just kind of looks it's like this. But if we go here, for example, it's like here, it actually looks a little better. Right now it's not looking it's like perfect because the x-axis has that maximum value on. But here now you can see there is a positive value and a negative value, and this is basically, even though we're calling it divergent bar chart, it's showing how much was the change from last year to this year in terms of it's like west, east, central, and south. So you can see that west and east increased a certain amount and central and south did not. To make this a little bit easier to read, what you can do is you can actually just go in and go to the bars and click on the conditional formatting. We've created a measure. No, not for this one. For the color here, we are just going to use the conditional formatting UI that you see here. And all we need to do is just go and find the format style we're going to set as rules. The first delta, which is the value that we're looking at. If this value is greater than 0 number, or hang on, 0%, and is less than the number, then we'll make it gray. So what this means is if it is, less than 0, it's going to be gray. Otherwise, if it's greater than or equal to 0, and, it's like less than, if you just, it's like remove the value here that just goes to max, then we'll make it green. So maybe pick this color. And this is a nice thing to do, in my opinion, where you can basically say, it's like, if it's positive, set it to be green. If it's negative, it's like set it to be gray. You can, of course, use whatever colors you like, but I think this is a really good way to go about doing things. Now, the next one that we're going to make is the Lollipop chart. Now, this Lollipop chart is quite simple, and it's going to be maybe the one that takes us the least amount of time. We're going to copy the rounded bar chart, paste it down here, and essentially all we need to do is we're going to first remove the x-axis minimum value because we don't need that anymore. And by extension, we also don't need the lower bound of, it's like the value. We're going to set the lower bound to be CY as well. Additionally, we're going to go into the bars and make sure that it's not 100% transparent, but we're also going throughout the layout and making sure that the bar is much smaller. So, so you, set it to be 75 or something like this. Hang on, is this exactly how I want to do it? Maybe not. Let's make this transparent again. Let's go back down to error bars. We'll set the lower bound to 0 again. Yeah, 0. And then here, the bar we're going to set to be, it's like, oh, so we'll still set the bar to be 7. And then the marker shape, we're going to set to white and have a border. Now, I think, it's like I explained this one the wrong way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and make sure the bars are not transparent anymore and make the space between categories as large as possible. And then we go into the error bars again. Make sure that the error bar only has the CY. And when you actually, it's like set this, we basically make sure that the bar color is white and the border color is green. And this way you have a nice little lollipop. Now, the main thing to worry about here is that the marker is size 10, and that does mean that it elongates outwards a little bit. And you do need to make sure that the x-axis has that maximum x value applied. But otherwise, it's quite easy to do, and it's like not too much trouble there. So the next one that we're looking at is the butterfly chart. So the butterfly chart is, it's like essentially just the bar chart, it's like with just one additional item. Or maybe it's closer to say that it's the stacked bar chart with one additional item. So we're going to copy the stacked bar chart, paste it here. And right now you can see that it has a, it's like legend category. We're going to remove that. And we're going to use the butterfly reverse PY. So we have this negative PY being shown. And what we're going to do is simply add that to the x-axis. And then you'll be able to see that this is going to be past year and current year. In order to make it look a little bit better, what you can do is you can go into reference line and add a reference line. We're going to choose it as a constant line. It's going to be 0. We're going to set the color to be black and solid. So you can see that now there are two different sides. And, it's like, I think that's mostly what you want. But if you go to the data labels, one thing that you can do is to turn on the data labels and make sure that you just show, it's like either current year or, it's like you can't just put in current year because then it would just show what this value is on both sides. So you can actually just, make sure that if we wanted to show the correct values in this way, data labels for all series are just going to be what they're supposed to be. So let me see if I can, it's like fix that. So for butterfly reverse PY, if we select this, the value can just be set as PY. And for current year, the data labels for that value, it's just CY. So you can actually see that now the values represent what is the past year and what is the current year. If you wanted to, it's like put in labels here, it's, it's like quite annoying to do because you could technically do this where you have a data label here and if you click the data label on the constant line on and make sure that the constant line is called, let's say 2021, for example, that could work, but it doesn't work 100% because right now, okay, so I've named this 2021, right? I'm going to the data label. I'm going to set the style to be name, and here I can put 2021. This is fine, but if I add a line and, it's like make this line called 2022, for example, and by setting it to 2022 and, it's like setting the color to be black again, make it solid, putting the data label on, and for the data label, I'll set it to right, put the name there, and it looks like 2021, 2022. The problem is that this is hard coded. So it's 2021, 2022, but let's say that I'm zooming out and I'm showing 2024 or something, those values don't change. So unless you only have 2 years, it's not worth doing it like this. And it's much better to use something like a legend to show, it's like 2021, 2022, and just rename them to be something like that. But the problem there is even if you, it's like use this, then it's hard to show that this is 2021, 2022. So, it's like just something to think about. There are ways around this, but I'm not going to go into that right now. So we'll just turn off the data labels on these and we'll just leave it at that. The next one that we're going to do is the bar chart with the line end. Now this is, basically just the same thing as the rounded bar chart. So we're going to copy this, paste it. And the only real difference here is that it has a line end, right? And that simply means the marker shape is a line. Not very, it's like interesting, but still works, it's like quite nicely. And let's make sure the bar color is also black. And here we go, a nice full color where you can see, it's like where the point ends. Still useful, still, it's like a nice way to show the indication. But one thing that we can do is going to make the next one, which is a bullet chart. Now you can't see the bullet chart very well here, but let's show, it's like something else here. Okay, so maybe there was a slight error with the bullet chart, because what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to show past year. Okay, that's exactly what we're going to do. So the oh, maybe I need to rename these. What was this one called? This one was called the bar chart with line end. That's the bullet chart. So let's just call this bar chart end, and we'll call this one the bullet chart. So the main thing about the bullet chart is that we're using the markers to show the past year, or you could use it to show targets or something like that. And here we're going to, to use it to show the past year. And this works just fine. But this isn't necessarily what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to make the bars a little bit thicker. And I think this is a nice, it's like way to show data as well. So you can see that some things are above, some things are below, and it's really easy to see this. Now, once again, just pointing it out, this one should also have the x-axis, it's like set, because if you don't, then it starts to look not as good. And, it's like this one's a better example of why you would want to use the x-axis, because honestly, if you just had the, it's like bar charts, not have the x-axis set and put the data label inside, and I think this actually looks quite good as well, and it's more space saving, so that might be a good way to, it's like show data if you were willing to do so. The next one is the progress bar, and the progress bar wasn't really possible before, or maybe it was using, it's like stacked bars, and if you wanted to do it with stacked bars, you basically what you would need to do is you would just need to make kind of copy this bar chart. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Progress bar, but the progress bar used to be something you could make by using the 100% stacked bar chart. You just find the percentage, and it's like add some it's like additional things to it. But now you don't necessarily need to do that. First, we're going to just make the percent measure by using CY divided by total CY. I'm not using the divide function here because total CY should always have a value. And what we're going to do is also make sure that the x-axis is turned off. That's fine. Make sure that we're having the stacked bar chart. And we also have another measure, which is simply called 1. Underscore 1 represents a 1. Fantastic. So I think what we want to do is use a clustered bar chart. And this is essentially going to be showing us, it's like CY percentage is supposed to be percent. And, it's like that's all it is. The values are a little bit off right now because of the data labels. And we'll change that in just a moment to CY percent. And honestly, this is fine. Like there's not that much more we need to do. But for the bars, we're going into the bars and we're going to turn on overlap. This is a relatively new feature. I think it was, within the last year. But if we put the space between series to be 100%, you can actually see that it just completely overlaps. The overlap depends on the order that it's in this, it's like a build panel as well. So if I move this CY percentage down, you can see that now I can see this slightly differently. This is pretty nice, and I can just, it's like set the sort axis to be CY percent. So the West is in the forefront. And what I can do is go into my data labels for the underscore 1, which is just the background. I'll turn the data label off. And inside of bars for the underscore 1, we can make this 90, 80, 70% transparent so that it's a little bit easier to see that this is the actual value and that's just the progress. That's completely fine by me, and by turning off the legend, that is a fully functional progress bar. The next chart we're going to make is essentially just another progress bar, but with a little bit extra. So we're going to do is we're going to add these, it's like bars to segregate the progress into different percentages by 25% each. So let's go here. We'll take this, copy it, and we'll paste it in here. The way that we get those different values is really simple. What we're going to do is we're going to add reference lines. Reference lines are a little bit tricky, but all you need to do is change the line to 1, choose type to be a constant line, and then set that line to a specific value. So we're going to choose 0.25. We'll set the color to be white, to be 0% transparent, and fully solid. And there we go. That's a line separator. We turn on the data label, and because it's 25%, that works really nicely because it's it's like the data value, and it works well because the percentage, or it's like the formatting, depends on the formatting of it's like the actual bars of themselves. What I mean by that is if we go to the data labels and we see that this is in percent, right? But if I go to CY percent and I change this to currency, okay, hang on, is this exactly where it was? So because right now it's showing you 25%, but normally it doesn't always do that. Right now it's showing 0.25, but in a lot of cases it will just show you a static value. So to prove my point, I'm going to just remake this very quickly because I think it's important to be able to show this. We put in the region, put in CY percent, put in 1. We'll make the bars overlap 100%. Put in a reference line, constant 0.25, data label on 25%. Okay, so maybe it's because here this is also percentage. Yes? No, let's make this a whole number. Yeah, okay, so now there we have it. So you can actually see that because I changed the _1 into a whole number, both on the one that I was making before and the current one, now the values changed to 0 because 0.25 as a whole number gets rounded down and it becomes a 0. If I made this into a decimal number, it shows as 0.25, or, well, I thought it would, yes. Fortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. But if I change this _1 to a percent, it changes. It's also, I think this might be a bug more than anything else, but the way that we set the format in both of these different, it's like values that are being used inside of the x-axis is propagated to how the reference line is, it's like being used. Otherwise, instead of using the data label as the data value, you could just put in the name and just change the name 25%. Luckily, that's not something that we have to do right now, so we'll go ahead and make the other ones. So we'll make constant line 2. That's going to be 0.5, and it's going to be a solid white, non-transparent with a data label. We'll add another one to be constant line 3, 0.75. This can be a little bit tedious, but is what it is. So solid. You can also see that you can change the width if you wanted to. I think 3 is fine. It's not a big deal. Then we'll add one last one for constant line to be 1, which is the same as 100%. Solid white, not transparent, data label. And that's perfectly fine by me. So you can actually see that's the progress bar. It looks, it's like really good. I'm very happy with that. Okay. The next chart we're going to make is a progress bar, but we're using this, it's like rounded circle instead of, it's like these different bars. And that's going to be really easy to do because basically we're just taking the bullet chart. I'm going to call it progress bar 3. Just make sure that one's called progress bar 2. And here we are simply going to be putting in, making sure that the error bar is now a circle again, and making sure that the bar is very, very thin. So if we go to the bars, let's go to layout, very thin. And that's basically, it's like what it is. And what you can do is right now you see that the, it's like bars are showing that for the data labels, we'll turn that off. And inside of the error bars, you can add the error labels on. So if we take a closer look, the error labels are going to show what that progress is. And the slightly annoying thing here is that, it's like it doesn't show the actual percent. So if you wanted to show, here it's showing progress bar, but if you wanted to show this percentage instead, what you would have to do is, it's like change out those values. So let's just rebuild it. so that it's easier for people to see. CY%, it's like we put an _1 to show 100% for the bars. For the error bars, we show CY percentage, turn it on, CY percentage here as well. Marker shape is a circle, make it size 10, put in the error labels, and now it shows the percent and how far it is. Be careful when you're doing this that, it's like if you want to change the colors and stuff, it's like the border color affects the markers as well. So you can, it's like change the border color to the bar color to, it's like whatever you want it to be. But sometimes you'll put in, it's like the text and it'll be hard to see because the contrast isn't very strong. So in certain cases, you do want to be more careful of how you're labeling things. Error bars, I believe, it's like error labels have a background as well. So you could even make it something like this, where you make a background that's, it's like maybe very light and easy to see. And then you put that as a value, but you can also see this kind of overlaps the actual markers. So you just want to be careful that, it's like whatever you're choosing is easy to read. And, it's like in certain cases, this is not always the easiest to read. So it might just be, something to look at a glance rather than something that you use all the time. Like you could even combine this with the constant lines in order to get something else, like a slightly different look. Okay, the next one we're gonna make is the progress area. Now, the progress area is the first one where we're going to use a different tool, and that tool happens to be PowerPoint. What you can actually see here is that this is a PowerPoint shape that I've, basically just inserted a shape, and I've just made sure that it has a white outline. Let's see if I can show you this. It has a white outline and it has, it's like slightly gradiented, it's like colors. Just saved this as a picture. And all that I've done in order to, it's like make this work as a progress area is, okay, so first of all, the progress area is going to be a percentage. So what we're doing is we're going to show the progress bar. We're going to paste it in here. This is the first progress bar, keep in mind. Let's zoom back in again. Sorry, guys. Progress bar. And then for the x-axis, what we're doing is we're setting the maximum to be 1 because, it's always going to be 1. And we're turning off this, it's like value here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to the plot area background. And all that I'm going to do is just select, it's like this file and place it in here, this image that I saved from PowerPoint. Now you can see that, it's like normal, it's like set here. If I put it to fit, it works, it's like better. The problem here is that you can kind of see if we zoom in very much that it's not perfect. Why is it not perfect? Well, it's because this item has a little bit of whiteness on either side because that's the outline. You could get around that by making sure that this specific one, the outline is the same color as the bar, something like this. But then, it's like you might find that it looks slightly, it's like weird, but that's just something that I'm showing you to, it's like make sure that you are not, too worried about that. So we'll save that. And once I do, I'm going to redo the plot area background, select this value, make the image to be fit. And now we have a perfect, it's like, how do you say? It is kind of like a perfect way of showing the area. This is 25%, 50%, etc. And it's very easy to see. You don't have the labels, but you could probably add them inside of, it's like the PowerPoint if you wanted. What you can do is inside of the bars, you can add a border, make that white to be more visible. And you can put into the data labels a background, make that white. Get, it's like quite, it's like easy to see. And this, I think, is a nice way to show progress as well. It's a progress bar and, it's like, it's very functional. The thing is that, it's like, yes, the extra background is like a little bit of an extra step, but I think it's totally worth it if you are interested in showing data this way. Okay, bar in bar. As you can probably tell, this one's really, it's like just the same as the bullet chart. So the bullet chart is going to be the same as the bar in bar. And the only main difference is that in the error bars, you don't have the markers, but the lower bound is going to be 0. And that's it. That's literally the whole chart. One thing that you might notice is that it does not do so well with data labels. So usually we turn them off for this bullet chart. You can make sure that the bar color is like maybe a little less jarring, for example. And you can also make the border size to be 0 if you want it to just look like this. I think that's okay. You do want to make sure that the contrast between your, it's like colors are working well. I don't think the contrast here is very good. We might make that a little bit more significant. Border color, black, for example. And I think that's like maybe a little bit easier to see, but just keep, in mind how you want to display things, because you do want to reduce cognitive, it's like overload, not, increase it. And now for the last three. Oh, wow, we're going fast. Okay. Clustered bar chart, this one is the one where it starts getting a little bit tricky. So this one, I think, copy the bar chart, we'll paste that in here. Here, we're going to make a disconnected table. First, I had this, it's like slightly easier thing when I only had 2 different years, but I wanted this to work for however many years that you wanted. Essentially, what you can do is, okay, let's zoom back in. We have 2025 selected. And in this bar chart, one thing that would be really cool is to simply put in year in, it's like under, it's like the region. And if you put this under the region and, it's like you like drill down, you can see 2025. That's cool. But what if you wanted to see 2025 and 2024 like this? That's really nice. It's like you've got West 2023, 2024, etc. But if I hard coded those values, if I put it to 2023, then these values wouldn't change. So I kind of want to be able to show these measures without doing this, where, it's like for 2025, I put in current year and past year. Because if I do current year and past year as a clustered bar chart, it still shows 2025. So in order to show the years and use different values, you kind of have to get creative. And to do that, you create a disconnected table. The table looks like this. It just shows 2021 to 2026. And at the very end, it has change. The way that it's bringing that, it's like making that happen is it's selecting the values of the year. And, it's like this is something that I did generate. But if you just have the values of the year and, it's like, it's called attribute because I didn't want to call it year, but this plus a data table that you declare as a string with the change, and you just union these two things together, you basically get the year and change, and this is all going to be text now, because you can't have change be inside of a, it's like data table where the column type is an integer or something. So now that it's text, what we can do is we're going to remove CY and PY. We're going to make the disconnected attribute be what we show. So now we have region and attribute, but we drill down to the attribute level, and now you can see that it doesn't work because there's no relationship between the disconnected table and the data set. But for us, that actually doesn't matter, because what we're going to do is use this. This is the candlestick measure. Candlestick measure looks at one thing. What is the year that is selected in the dataset year? So that's what's in the slicer. The year slicer right now is 2025. If the year, it's like a selected value of the attribute, so what we're looking at is the same as the year, and, so we have to format it as a text value, then show the current year. Otherwise, if it's the year -1, so last year, then show past year as a value. Otherwise, if the value is change, then show what is the, higher value, the maximum of past year or current year. So we take this candlestick and we put it into the x-axis, and now we have, it's like this value. It shows 2024, 2025, and change. But the attribute has to be sorted, and, it's like, okay, we sort the axis by the region attribute, ascending. So it'll always show the top, the first year, the second year, and then change. And that works, it's like quite nicely. And so we have this, it's like, I don't think that we can, it's like sort it other ways right now, but since we have this, what we can do is we can go in and change the bar colors. The bar colors, you can't really change like one by one, because I mean, you technically could, it's like you could go in here and you could be like, if the, it's like attribute is 2022, then show it as this. If it's 2023, show it as this. But that's really difficult because if you set those manually, if you change the year, so the current year changes, then you also want the color to change. So what I mean by that is the candlestick color is something that we can set using a measure. With the, it's like slicer value for year, which is 2024 right now because I just changed it. If we have the current year selected, give us this hex code. If we have the last year selected, give us this hex code. Otherwise, make it transparent. And with that, I can go into conditional formatting of the bar colors, click on field value, click on or find candlestick color, and now you have this. Now, I think I made a mistake. I'm showing you candlestick. We should have shown you side by side first, because it's like that's yeah, we're showing you clustered bar chart first and then bar and candlestick. So let me just go back and let's take this bar chart because we have the side by side bars, which isn't using the change. So we're gonna throw that in here instead of candlestick, and then instead of the color showing the candlestick color, we have the side by side color, which doesn't take into account the change. So let's go to field value, select side by side color. And now we have this really, it's an easy thing where you've got the specific regions, you've got the years, and if we change the, it's like year selection, you also have the years changing dynamically, which is a little bit harder to pull off, but it's really nice. This also still uses the x-axis, and it's like that's necessary in order to show data like this, and it's really, really cool for me. So we're gonna take this and make sure it's called clustered bar chart, and then we're gonna create the clustered candlestick bar chart. The clustered candlestick bar chart is going to be, instead of using side by side, we use the candlestick, making sure that the colors of the bar are set using the other color measure that I just showed you. And now you see that the change value has disappeared. This is exactly what we want. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into our data labels. We don't change anything entirely. What we do is for series, hang on. Okay, so for series all, the value can only be changed CY. So we can't change all of these things one by one because it's using technically one measure. So if we wanted to change this and only show a value for change, then what we do is we create a measure where only if the selected value is changed, then give us a value. The actual value that we want is the delta divided by total CY percent. So what is the delta? It's the past year minus, or the current year minus the past year. We want to format it in this way so that if it's positive, give us a plus sign and then the percent, or if it's negative, give us a minus sign and the percent. And by taking this, going into the value and setting the candlestick label inside of that value, we have this -9, -7, plus, it's like, okay, it's weird that that's not showing, but I think that might be because we don't have decimals. So might need to change it like this. And here, now we have decimals. So that's perfectly fine. This is good, but this is not necessarily everything that we want. What we want is to go into our error bars, enable the candlestick, and then click on this. Candlestick min CY versus PY is basically if the value is changed, give us what is the lowest value, minimum CY or PY. So I'll put that in here into the lower bound. And you can see this essentially creates a line from the top value to that value that we've selected. If we take away the marker and just give us that bar, make it a little bit thicker, that essentially represents what is the, it's like difference between current year versus past year. There are a couple of things that you can do if you wanted to, like for the, it's like value here, you can change the color and set it so that, it's like the color changes based on if it's positive or if it's negative. So like I could literally go, if the delta is greater than 0 or is less than 0, make it red. And otherwise, if it's greater than 0, make it green. So you can, like do things like this and, just try not to be to add too much, it's like stuff to overload the end user. This is completely fine, I think. Okay, and the last one, this one is something that is originally, I think, in the Tableau versions, and what Nicholas made is a jitter chart, and I think that's a little bit too much effort. So instead, I created a Matrix SVG. So this is something that I have to make from scratch, and I'm kind of gonna show you an easy way to do it. So I have a table here, and I'm gonna put in regions, and I have this, it's like measure here. That's fine. Let's not worry too much about that for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my external tools, tabular editor. And if I click on tabular editor, I am going to basically open up my tables, click on Dataset, hit my C# script, samples, macros, and I have specific C# scripts to make this. I have one that's called IBCS Matrix. I'm going to run the script and I'm going to select, let's see, we want to look at the current year versus the past year by region. So if we select that and I hit OK and I save it, you'll see that another measure is being created. There we go. And if I put this into my columns, you can see that something has been created. Now, this is okay, I gotta set the image size to, I think, 40 and 180, something like that. And this essentially is something that allows me to show inside of a table what is, it's like what the delta has been as well as the total. We don't really need to care about the total, so maybe I'll turn that off for now. And I think for the column, for the actual values, we'll make that size 14 so you can see it a little bit easier. And of course, you can turn things on like the title and make this, Matrix SVG. It's centered, and we can get rid of these by, it's like putting the columns and the value just as a spacebar so that it kind of just, it's like doesn't show any values underneath. Now, what is this Matrix SVG? This Matrix SVG is essentially using code as well as the values that are being, it's like used in here to generate an image which is going to be rendered inside of the actual table. That was the entire code, and right now is the first sponsored segment of my video. And the sponsor is me. I have just started creating, it's like Power BI content outside of YouTube as well. Some people may have already seen this, and I run a community called Power BI Park inside of school.com. And inside of here, if you are interested, you can join for a monthly fee. And there's a whole bunch of different techniques that I go into here and there. And one of these techniques is actually making, it's like SVGs. So I've got, it's like a couple of different things planned, but, it's like essentially I go into how you can make SVGs using ChatGPT, which is what I use to make most of my SVGs, but also how you can use, like different tabular scripts like this, how you can, it's like basically generate a whole bunch of different scripts in one go that you can use inside of tabular editor, as well as how to modify these, it's like code sections to use as you like for your own, it's like items. Don't worry, this specific SVG I'm going to leave in here, and it's like if you want to try to use it yourself, you're absolutely welcome to. It will be in the starter file, but I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of what I've been up to for a little bit. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I really hope that you've learned something new in terms of different techniques that you can use inside of Power BI natively. There are, of course, different things that I haven't gone through, but I really hope this is enough for you to, to get started and improve the way that your visuals look. Until next time, thanks so much and take care.